Hello and welcome to a new episode of Adobe Creative Cloud TV. My name is Terry White, and in this episode we're going to take a look at how to get started with Adobe InDesign CC, the 10 things beginners want to know how to do. So this is it. If you're new to InDesign or self-taught in InDesign, you kind of want to know the foundation and how to get started, or maybe you've never opened the application before and you want to know what to do. This is the actual tutorial for you. Now, with that said, for those of you who are even unaware what InDesign is, maybe you've heard of Photoshop or Illustrator, think of InDesign as the tool that puts it all together. So for example, you've used Photoshop to edit your photos, to make your photos look great. You've used Illustrator to create logos and vector artwork and drawings and illustrations. And now you want to bring it all together and lay it out in a document. And that's what InDesign is for. Now, of course, there's overlap. You can lay out a full page design in Illustrator, no problem. Some people even use Photoshop to lay out, their photo books or whatever. But even though those tools can do those kinds of things, they're not really geared for it. And InDesign is geared for page layout. So if this is where you are because you got frustrated with not being able to do things properly or completely in Photoshop and Illustrator for layout, then you're in the right spot. So let's go ahead and jump right in with the 10 things people want to know how to do. Now, the first one would of course be creating your new document. But before we can even do that, we'll call this point 5 of the 10 because it's not really number 1 yet. And that is setting your measurement system. InDesign, so for example, if I were to create a new document, InDesign is going to create that new document using points. And if you come from a traditional typography world, then that makes sense. But if you don't, then you might want inches or, picas or millimeters or something else other than points. So we're going to go in to our preferences with no document open, with nothing open. Preferences, we're going to go to units and increments, and we're going to say change our horizontal measurement from points to inches, change our vertical measurement from points to inches. Now when we click OK, from here on out, when we measure things or do things in InDesign, it will be in inches or whatever you set yours to. The next thing we're going to do is go to our File menu now and come down and create a new document. Now you'll see under New, there's Book, Folio, and Library. Most of the time, I would probably say 99% of the time, you're going to create a new document, even if you are working on a book. Don't let this fool you. This is a different kind of book than what you're probably thinking about. You're going to create your new document, and let's say you are making a book. The book feature is really designed for combining multiple InDesign documents together as one. So in a traditional book, you might have different people working on different chapters. Those would all be in different InDesign documents. Once you're ready to bring them all together, that's when you'd say new book. But for the most part, new document is what you want. Now that we've said new document, we need to understand what our intent is going to be. So in other words, are you making this for print? Are you making it for the web? Probably not these days, at least not in InDesign. InDesign is really not a web tool per se. Or are you making it for digital publishing? Because InDesign is good for making digital apps, digital magazines, ebooks, so forth and so on. So if your initial thought is print, that's fine. You can always make a version of it for web or digital publishing later. So we're going to leave it on print. The next thing we're going to do is tell it how many pages we want. So we want 4 pages. You could have 40, you could have 50, you could have 100, you could have 500. You can have as many as you want. And if you guess too low or too high from the start, you can always add more pages or delete pages you don't use. Now the next one is facing pages. This will be determined depending on the kind of document you're making. So for example, if you're making a brochure, magazine, book, or something that opens up and has a left and a right page, that's when you'd use facing pages. If you're designing a flyer, a business card, or something else that is one side or even flipped over as a different side but doesn't face each other, then it would be facing pages turned off. So we're going to skip down to the paper size. Since we're using print, it gives us the most common paper sizes, including US and international versions, and even all the way down to a business card, which would be 3.5 inches by 2. So you can go ahead and create whatever you want, or if you want something that's not a standard size, just go ahead and type in your dimensions. So if you want a 5 by 7, you want a 10 by 10, you want whatever size document you're going to make, then type it in if it's not one of the default sizes. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to give it 5 columns. Now these columns are just guides. They won't print, but they'll be there to help you structure your document so that you're not laying things out so free form. The number of columns is up to you. It's basically creating a grid system for you. And then down in the margin area, the margins by default are a 1/2 inch, which might be a little too much for most people, but we'll leave it on a 1/2 inch because, again, those can be overridden as well. And then last but not least is the bleed and slug area, which I traditionally don't show beginners, but it is something we are going to kind of experiment with today. Now what this bleed area means is that we're creating an 8.5 by 11 document. But if we were doing traditional printing and we wanted the photograph to go to the edge of the paper, then you really print the photograph on a paper a little bit bigger than 8.5 by 11 and cut it down to 8.5 by 11. Now, that's when you need a bleed. However, if you're printing to your own desktop printer that prints edge to edge and doesn't need to overprint it, then you don't need a bleed because you can just say print to the edge of the 8.5 by 11. But in a traditional offset printing world, you do print on a larger piece of paper and then cut it down so that it looks like the image went to the actual edge. And in that case, we are going to do 0.25, a 1/4 inch bleed all the way around. So now we've got our 4 pages, facing pages, 8.5 by 11, tall, 5 columns, leaving the default margins and putting in a bleed. Click OK, and that will give us page 1 of our 4 pages. Our 4 pages are right here if we scroll down. And that completes number 1 of the 10 things. Now, number 2, to build this document, we're of course going to use text and images. And normally I would start laying them out together. Put some images down, put some text down, put some images down, put some text down. But we're going to go ahead and get our images out of the way for the most part. And then we'll go ahead and put our text down next. So let's place an image. Now there's a couple ways to do it. I'm going to show you both ways. The first way is if you want to use a frame and create the placeholder for where your image is going to go beforehand. Images and text are in frames regardless of how you bring them in. So if you don't create the frame first, InDesign is going to create it for you anyway. But if you want to be proactive and say, well, no, I know exactly where I want my image to go. I want it to be off the page and basically fill up the entire page. Then I can draw the frame first and then go ahead and place my image. Now, how do I get my image in? Any way you want. Drag and drop. Copy paste, which I don't really recommend, but drag and drop using the place feature under the file menu, which probably be the most common, or using Bridge. Now Bridge traditionally has always been a part of what we used to have as Creative Suite, or the CS applications would automatically install Bridge. But now, because of Creative Cloud, you can optionally install Bridge if you want it. So Bridge CC is there. I've got it installed and up to date. If you haven't installed it, just go to your Creative Cloud app, scroll all the way down, and it will be listed down in the apps you haven't installed, and you just click Install to install it. Now, why Bridge? Because Bridge gives us a visual indicator of what our images are going to look like that we want to bring in. So I can go ahead and I can select this cover image that I want. I can use Bridge's place menu, and I can say place that right in InDesign, and it will take me back to InDesign and place it. That's one way to do it. The next way to do it, here, let me delete this. This is the ultimate way we're going to want it. But the next way to do it is to not do the frame first. And now if we go to File, Place, go find our image, which is over here, and it's in that InDesign folder I was working on. There it is. And I can bring in that same cover image. And then now I don't get the image popping on the page automatically because there's no frame, there's no placeholder. So I can go ahead and drag where I want that image to be, and it will place the image in that spot. Now there's one more way, and that is what happens when you draw a frame that your image doesn't fit in. So for example, let's say I draw a frame like this, and then I go File, Place, and place that exact same image. Now, because I drew the frame so much smaller, we don't even see her because she's filling up the entire space, but we only drew a frame that's showing the upper left corner. Now, if I switch back to my selection tool, I can use the content grabber and kind of move it around until we find her. There she is. But that could work if that's what you wanted to do, if you wanted to crop it. But that really doesn't show everything. It just shows the part that fits. So you can use one of the fitting commands, or we can do it here from the menu. Object, fitting, fill frame proportionally, which is the one I like the most, fills the frame. Let's undo it. Fit frame proportionally is the second most common one, fit content proportionally. And that will make everything show, but if you didn't draw the frame the exact same aspect ratio, then you'll have white space left over. And so those are the two that people will use the most. So let's undo, and actually let's fill frame proportionally. And now we have the image filling the frame, and let's say we now want to move it or size it. Well, go back to your selection tool, click anywhere outside the content grabber, anywhere on the image itself, you can pick it up and move it. And what if you wanted to size it? Oh, I know how, I'll grab the corner and drag, right? No. Well, not quite. Dragging the corner and sizing, you're sizing the frame. But if you really want to size the content and the frame, then you need two more keys, or two keys. You need your Shift key to do it proportionally. And on the Mac, you would use your Command key, and on Windows, you'd use your Control key. And that will allow you to size both the frame and the image at the same time, whether it's bigger or smaller. So that is technically the beginning parts of how to work with images inside InDesign. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to go ahead and delete this and start over again. We're going to draw our frame out just like we did before. And once we get our frame, the size of the bleed area off the page, we'll now place that image. So we'll go back to Bridge, grab that image, File, Place from Bridge into InDesign, and that will go ahead and take us back to InDesign and fill that area up. Now we can leave it just the way it is, and we're going to go ahead now and move on to our next page. So how do we get to the next page? Because again, we're going to put text here, we're going to do all kinds of things, but let's deal with images first. So let's go ahead and go down to our next page, which we're just going to scroll over to pages 2 and 3. And now on page 2, I want to place 3 images here. But I'm tired of the back and forth. I don't want to keep bouncing back and forth between Bridge and InDesign. So one of the things we can do is bring up something called MiniBridge. But before I do that, I want to set the rest of my workspace properly. Now I've been working on the advanced workspace, and I know this is a beginner topic. So I'm going to switch you back to Essentials. When I go to Essentials, that will show me just the most essential panels. But I now want to add one. I want to add a panel that's custom to InDesign or exclusive to InDesign and Photoshop called MiniBridge. So we saw the bridge button up here in the upper left-hand corner, but when you hover over that button, it gives you more options. It says if you hold down your Shift key and click, it will open MiniBridge. So MiniBridge is a panel that you can use inside of InDesign and inside of Photoshop to access Bridge running in the background. Bridge does have to be running, and without having to go back and forth between the programs, because MiniBridge can stay here at all times. And you can navigate to your folders the same way to go find the same content or same folder you were looking at. Now I can just have MiniBridge float, or I can drag it in and have it be a panel that pops out as I need it. So if I don't need it, I can put it away. If I need it, I can bring it out. So now that I've got MiniBridge in place and I'm looking at the same folder, I'm going to scroll up and I'm going to go ahead and get 3 images. So I'm going to click on this first one, hold down my Shift key, click the second one, and click the third one so I can get them all selected at the same time. Now I don't have to bounce back and forth. If I want those 3 images, I can just drag them right in. When I drag them in, because I didn't have a frame first, InDesign says I'm going to give you a placement gun to tell you to let you click wherever you want to put them. And by the way, I can put MiniBridge away while I'm working. So now I've got these 3 images loaded, and it's saying, I don't know where you want them. So if I click, it's going to place the image full screen. If I click and drag, it's going to make a frame, whatever size I drag it. But in this case, I want to drag from the upper left corner of the margin and to the right side of the margin. But if I let go, I'm just going to get that first image. So instead of letting go, I'm still holding down the mouse button. I'm going to use my other finger and tap the right arrow key once, twice. In other words, divide that frame up into 3 frames. Now when I let go of the mouse, I get all 3 images placed at the same time. So if I had 9 images, I could do right arrow key twice to give me 3 across, down arrow key twice to give me 3 rows. All 9 images would go in. So now it brought the images in wherever I let go, and notice that there's a little bit of white space at the top and bottom because I didn't let go in the exact same aspect ratio. So I can just simply say fill frame proportionally using the fill frame proportionally button and fill those frames up. Now that's cool. The next thing we're going to do is bring in one more image, and we're going to go to MiniBridge and get it. And that next image is going to be this one. So we're going to go ahead and drag it in. Again, we get the placement gun. We can put MiniBridge away, and we can say where we want this image to go. I want this image to go right here. And I'm going to go ahead and just use my selection tool and move it down and have it bleed off the page. There we go. Perfect. All right, so we'll use that in a moment. And we're going to go ahead and now start our, actually that was number 2, placing images. Now we're going to do number 3, which is edit images. Let's say you see an image that you placed and you now want to do some editing to it. So I'm going to select this image. I'm going to show you what it looks like. I just hit Command 2 to zoom in 200%. And I don't like the shoulder. I don't like the way the sweater is bunched up. So I can use Photoshop to fix that. But I'm already in InDesign. How do I get this image open in Photoshop? Well, InDesign shares a relationship with Photoshop. So if I hold down my Option or Alt key and double click, it knows to open up that image in whatever application was used to edit. So in this case, that would be Photoshop. So it brings the image open. I can now use, for example, the liquify filter. Here, let's make sure we're on the right layer there. Liquify filter. And with that image open in liquify, I can make my brush a little bit bigger. And we just go ahead and kind of smoosh, if smoosh is a word, smoosh that down, kind of fixing some of those wrinkles, making that a little smoother. My clothing designer really appreciates it. And it's not so distracting having that there now. We click OK. We smoosh that down. We save it, which will save the file. Once it's saved, we can close it, switch back over to InDesign, and InDesign updates. So that is how you would edit an image using InDesign to go to Photoshop or Illustrator if it were an illustration. So now that we've, here, let's go ahead and go back. Now that we've gone ahead and placed images and we now know how to edit images, the next thing we want to do is deal with text. So, for example, if we want text on the page, we have to have a frame, just like we did for the images. So whether you create the frame yourself or whether InDesign creates the frame automatically when you're placing text, that's up to you. So I'm going to grab my type tool and I'm going to go ahead and drag out a frame. So now that I've drug out a frame, I can now tell it what I want to be in that frame. I'm just going to type the word graphic, or how about the word design. So now that I've got the word there, next one is formatting. So that would be number 5. So I select the text and I now can make it whatever size I want, whatever font I want. So I want it to be 90 points in size. So I'm just going to make it nice and big. And now the font defaulted to my default font, which is Myriad Pro. But I want to use a font that I don't have yet. So where am I going to get it from? Well, as part of your Creative Cloud membership, if you have a full membership, then you have access to the Typekit desktop fonts. So I can say Browse Fonts on Typekit using the Creative Cloud app. It will bring up my web browser. It will take me over to the font library. And I can search for whatever style I want, whatever name I want. So I'm going to go to serif. I'm looking for a serif font. And the one that I heard was looking kind of cool was Grad. So I'm going to click on Grad, and I'm just going to say use this font. And now it says I'll sync the regular, italic, and bold. I'm just going to go ahead and say sync selected fonts. And once I do that, you'll notice your Creative Cloud app in a few seconds will update with a little couple arrows that start to sync that font to your computer, like that. And you'll get a little message saying that the fonts were added. So now, those fonts have not only been downloaded, but they've been installed, and I didn't even have to quit InDesign. InDesign knows about them now. So if I go over to the font menu and I type in Grad, it knows that Grad's there, and I can use Grad Bold. And there it is. So just that quickly and easily, I got a new font that I didn't have because I'm a Creative Cloud member. Now I'm going to go ahead and make this a little smaller, and we'll use the same selection tool just outside of the handle here, and we'll rotate that. There we go. Hold down the Shift key, and we'll put this in place. Great. We got our design word in place. Now we're going to go ahead and create some placeholders. And you know what? I kind of jumped the gun on this last photo. We're going to do something special with that. So I'm going to get rid of it for now. I want to go ahead and create some frames for my text. So let's go ahead and grab our type tool. And we're just going to go ahead and draw out our first frame across the 4 columns here. That will be for our headline. And then I want to create one for some body copy here. And another one right next to it for some body copy here. And the last one is going to fill up this entire page. Body copy there. Okay, so now these are 4 independent frames that don't know anything about each other. I want to connect them. I want to link them together. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my first frame, and you'll notice that we have the handles, all 8 handles, to resize and reshape the frame. But we also have this white box and this white box, kind of like on the upper left corner and the bottom right corner in between the sizing handles. That is your in port and your out port. And that is how you link frames together. So I click the out port of this frame and click anywhere inside this frame. I click the out port of this frame and click anywhere inside this frame. And I click the out port of this frame and click anywhere into our last frame. And now all 4 of those frames are linked together. How would I know that if I just walked in? Well, there's one way to view it. Under the View menu, you have Extras, Show Text Threads. While the frame is selected, you'll see the text threads. When it's not selected, you won't see them. But you select any one of these frames, and it will show you the linkages between them. So now when I type, and I keep typing, the text will automatically flow from frame to frame. If I place a Word document or text file, the text will automatically flow from frame to frame. And if I want, I can just go ahead and start typing. So I can grab my type tool, click inside this first frame, and I can say, meet the designers. And now I can go ahead and size that, and we'll go ahead and make it, let's make it Grad Bold again. There we go. And we're going to go ahead and make it bigger. How about 36 point? Maybe even bigger yet. How about, oops, wrong one. How about size 48 point? Great. And now I want to go ahead and have the rest of the text that's going to be my body copy. So I'm going to hit the return key after the Meet the Designers. I'm going to change my size back down to maybe 10 point. And I'm going to change the font back to Myriad Pro. And we'll do Myriad Pro Regular. All right, so now I'm on Myriad Pro Regular, and I want the rest of these frames to have the rest of my story, but I don't want to sit here typing. So I'm just going to put in some sample text, placeholder text, using a feature of InDesign under the Type menu called Fill with Placeholder Text. And there it is. It filled it up with, if we zoom in a little bit, we'll see it, with this sample text. All right, now that I've done that, I kind of noticed that, well, it's putting that sample text right under the Meet the Designers into the same frame, which that could be an okay design. But let's say I wanted that headline all by itself. Well, I can just make the frame smaller, and it will push that text or force the text down to the next frame and to the next frame and to the next frame. And if you end up with more text than you have frame, you will get this little red plus sign letting you know you have an overset situation, meaning you've got more text than fits in your frame, and we will deal with that in a moment because we're going to make it overset even more. So now that we've done that, let's see, we've done new document, we've done placing images, we've done edit the image in Photoshop, we've done creating text, we've done a little bit of formatting text. Now we're going to work with color. So I want the Meet the Designers to be a different color. So I'm going to go ahead and double click again, highlight the Meet the Designers, and I can go to my swatches and pick any of the basic swatches here. We have red, green, and blue, cyan, magenta, yellow, and black. I can create any colors I want from any libraries I want. So I can go ahead and say add to swatches or bring up libraries if I want. But what if I want to use a color that's already in my document? For example, I can grab my eyedropper tool while that text is selected, and I can grab the purple in that sweater, and it will now make that purple. Now, that's great for mixing a color on the fly, but it doesn't serve me any benefit if I never can remember what that color was or click in the exact same spot again. So when you mix a color, the next thing you want to do is go to swatches and make it a swatch. So we go to our swatch and we say create a new swatch based on that color I just made. Now I can use that swatch over and over and over again. So if I come here and I want design to be that exact same purple, I can highlight that, click on the purple, and now design is that purple. So if I go in and change the purple to something else, everything that uses that swatch will update. That's the whole point of swatches. And of course, number 7 is creating style sheets. So we created a swatch or worked with color a little bit. Now style sheets are for same thing, styling your text or creating style sheets so that you can style text in the future over and over and over again. So I want to create 2 styles. I want to create one for the headline. So I'm going to go and bring up my styles now. Window, styles, paragraph styles. That will bring up the paragraph and character style panel. Just going to go ahead and dock it over here. And now for my paragraph styles, it says there's no one other than the built-in basic one. We're going to create a new one. And we want that new one to be called headline. So I just double clicked on it, typed headline, and now that's our headline style. I already formatted the body. It's 10-point Myriad Pro. So I can highlight any of this text and make a new style for this. And this new style will be called body. So you can highlight all of this text and make it body so that if you make any changes to body, any of this text will be formatted. So we can do that as well. So now that we've got our headline and our body styles, that means, for example, we go to the next page and we type in a new thing. So we said design on the last page. Let's say we type in graphic here, all lowercase. Then we can style that quickly as a headline, just that easily. So we can go in and if we go here and create some sample text, so we can say fill with placeholder text. And of course, that's going to come in by default of whatever the defaults are. We can say, nope, that's body copy. Make it 10-point Myriad Pro. So that's the whole point of style sheets. And that is number 7, working with style sheets. Next, let's go back up. We weren't finished yet. And we're going to do number 8, which is text wrap. People always want to know how to do text wrapping around something else. So that's why we're going to place that photo again. So let's go to our MiniBridge. Let's grab the wrap photo. And we're going to go ahead and put her right here. Now, I'm placing this photo on top of my text. And we're going to bring her down so she's hanging off the page. And of course, if we were to go look at this and zoom in on it, she's covering the text. She's sitting on top of it. Well, what I would love to do is have the text wrap around her. Now, you can do text wrap a couple of different ways. So let me show you, let me give you a quick example. If I go in and I create a frame, and that frame is sitting right on top of anything else, like text, I have my wrap options right here. So I can say text wrap, wrap around the bounding box. So now the text runs around that box and I can put whatever I want inside that box. We're good to go. So let's undo, get rid of that. Now in this case, we have a photo, a PSD, a Photoshop document that has no background. So it blended in nicely, transparently, so that we can see that there's no white background that she's standing on. So if we wrap text around her with the bounding box idea, well, yeah, that works, but it doesn't look cool because it just looks like we left a hole and put a photo in it. But since she doesn't have a background, why don't we make it look better? So let's go to our window menu, text wrap, and that will bring up the text wrap options that you don't get with just the 4 buttons. And one of those options is, hey, while you've got that photo selected, instead of wrapping the text around the bounding box, why don't you wrap it to, here we'll select it again. Ah, I see why. We'll do an irregular shape. So we'll use our third option, but it doesn't know what the irregular shape is yet. So while I've got it selected, I'm going to say that the irregular shape is detect the edges. In other words, you figure it out. You tell me where she is. And it will look at the photo and analyze it. So that's great for logos. It's great for Photoshop images that you place without a background. So now, the text wrap that it did may not be all that great because, again, it's trying to put text wherever it can around the photo. And I really don't like it around the back of her back or head or shoulder. So you notice this blue line. This is kind of like your force field. This is your gate that's telling it where it can and can't wrap. Well, if you go to your direct selection tool, you can manipulate this and you can tell it, no, don't let text come into this area. Don't let text come into this area. I can push these out and not have text come into these areas. So I can adjust where the text will stop, where the text will wrap, based on pulling out this path that it created automatically around her. And if I keep pulling it out far enough, we'll tell it that the text cannot go in this area behind her. So again, if I keep pulling this out, there we go. So that's there's one more that snuck down here. Let's get that one out of here too. There we go. So now we've got our text around her, but not coming in to interfere with her to the point to where it would make it hard to read. Okay, great. Now, of course, like I said, that's going to create more of a text overset problem because now the rest of the text that was in this frame definitely isn't showing because we use some of the space for the photo. So what do I do with this red plus sign? Well, if I want to continue the text, I click the red plus sign and then I go anywhere else where I want to continue it. So if I want to continue it here, I can drag out a new frame and it will continue the text from there to here. So that is, and again, I may not want the graphic coming all the way over. And I can pick these up and move these over. And this is the whole point of page layout. You're laying out a page, putting things where you want them to be, and how you want them to look on your actual page. So we placed our text, we placed our images, we did text wrap, 2 more really quick. And that is, what about page numbers or things, elements that you want to be consistent across pages? Well, InDesign has a Pages panel. And that Pages panel shows you your document pages, the ones we've built so far. And it also shows our master page. So if I go to my master page area, I can double click and I can say, what do I want to be on all my pages? So for example, maybe I want a rule across the top of the page. So I can drag out using the line tool, and we can use maybe a half point rule. And I can then use my selection tool and duplicate that rule by holding down my Option or Alt key and dragging it over. So now I've got my two rules at the top of the pages. And now I want the page number to be maybe in the center of the page. So what I'm going to do is grab my text tool, drag out a nice frame that goes across the margin area. I'm going to center that text. And now I'm going to put in the symbol or the thing that automatically generates page numbers. And if I don't remember what that is, I can go up to my type menu and I can say insert special character, or is it special character? No, it is not special character, is it? I can't remember. There we go. It is special character. Insert special character markers current page number. And that will put an A there. Well, why an A? Because we're on the A master page, so it is working. Next, we want to duplicate that. So I'm going to hold down my Option or Alt key and drag another one over here, so it'll number my right pages as well. And now when I go back to pages 2 and 3, pages 2 and 3 have a number. If I want to style that number with a different font, different size, different color, different whatever, I go back to the master page and do it. So if I want my page number to be smaller, I can say, no, not 10 point. How about 9 point? Make a nice small page number at 9 point. So now when I go back to this, my page numbers are now nice and tiny, 9 point page numbers. And if I want to move them down, go back to the master page and move them down. Don't have them be right at the bottom of the margin area. Maybe space them down a little bit. There we go. So now they're not touching the bottom of the text. Okay, well that's great, except for page 1. Page 1, we don't want a page number on there. Now, luckily, the image would be covering it up. But if you didn't have an image covering it up, how would you get rid of the page number on page 1? Well, one way is to simply not use the A master page. We can just go ahead and drag over a blank so that now page 1 doesn't use A. Page 2, 3, and 4 do, but page 1 is no master. So that's one quick way to do it. Now that we're back to page 1, let's go ahead and experiment with some text designs here. So for example, we can grab our type tool, we can drag out a nice big frame, and we can have that nice big frame say the word InDesign, and we can select that text. We can use keyboard shortcuts like Command Shift greater than on Mac, or PC Control Shift greater than to make that text nice and big. We can use whatever font we want, so we could use the grad font if we want that, maybe grad regular, and that will use our InDesign. And next thing we want to do is maybe adjust the tracking of that. So we can use our Option or Alt right arrow key, or simply type in the values. So everything I'm doing from the keyboard could easily be done by just typing the values in if you knew them, but I like to design these things visually whenever I can. Now last but not least, we can make that whatever color we want. So we'd make it use a nice swatch. We could make it the purple that we've been using. We can make it the yellow that we don't want to use. We can make it the magenta or pink or blue or whatever you want. And that would be your type treatment. Now InDesign also does have drop shadows and transparency and all kinds of other things that we can do. And we could even trick this into thinking it's behind it, behind her head, by placing another copy of her without a background right on top of herself, so that the text would be sandwiched in between the gray background and her. There are all kinds of tips and techniques we can do to create that magazine look. I'm not crazy about the way this looks, by the way, but it's just something down and dirty. All right, next we can grab our type tool. We can come down here and do the typical magazine thing. What's in for the winter? Winter. Select all. Again, choose whatever font we want. I'm kind of tired of using grad at this point. So let me go back to jump to my Adobe, or you know what, Proxima Nova. I haven't used that in a while. Let's use thin. And let's go ahead and choose a nice big font for that. And maybe make it a little smaller. and we're going to adjust our leading, which is Option up arrow key or Alt up arrow key, which again is just changing this value. And we've got our what's in for the winter and question mark. There we go. And of course, we can make that whatever size, style, color we want, and you get the idea. So, last but not least, number 10 is output. So we're going to go to our file menu and talk about a couple of different ways to output this. Obviously, you can print. If you've got a printer connected to your computer, you can print directly. We're going to go ahead and save it first, and we're going to call it mag for magazine. And now that we've got it saved, now printing is obviously, that's a no-brainer, file print. You have the ability to export out a PDF. So if you wanted to send this to someone else to print it or look at it or put it online, you can make a PDF right from InDesign using the export option. And last but not least, if you're going to give this whole thing for someone else to open up in InDesign and maybe your printer to print, then you could go in and do the package feature. So using package, we can say package this whole thing up. It's giving us a warning because RGB may be a problem for some printers. And the photographs we place were RGB. But otherwise, we would say package, continue, tell it where to put it. Let's say the desktop, for example, and it will make a package, warning me about font copyright. It will make a package of the InDesign, all the photos that were used, and the fonts that could be packaged will be packaged. And therefore, anyone with InDesign CC would be able to open it up. Now, the Typekit desktop font does not get packaged, so that grad font would not get packaged with it, but because it's from Creative Cloud, any Creative Cloud member you would give this to would simply go download and install grad because all Creative Cloud members have access to the same fonts. So that's just a quick look at the 10 things people want to know how to do with InDesign CC. Hope you learned something. Hope that it took away the fear that you may have had with InDesign. By the way, as a side bonus, if you want to see what this looks like printed or without all the guides and things in the way, without being in the text tool, as a matter of fact, as long as you're not in the text tool, any other tool, you hit the letter W, which will show you preview mode. And now you can scroll through your document and see what your document will look like if it were printed. So we have our guides, our page number, everything that we've done thus far. And of course, we can keep building. We can add more space here. So if you kind of like say, hey, that looks too crowded, we can just go ahead and make that more spacious and add something here as well. So there you go. And of course, that will just flow the rest of that text over to this other frame, which we would then maybe need to place or create a, here, let's do this. There we go. Just so that we don't have an overset situation, and we can go ahead and move this like so. So all kinds of ways to format things, and it's just taking your designs and making this look the way you want using InDesign CC. My name is Terry White. Thanks for watching.